People come to Greece for a holiday. But let me ask you, is it really a holiday to jump from the highest cliff into deep waters? Coming to Greece isn't really a holiday. It's so much more. It's a life-changing experience!
Go to visitgreece.gr. Greece, a life-changing experience. Go to visitgreece.gr.
With us this morning is Dr. William J. Parker. He was 30 years in the Navy, CEO of Parker Maritime Technologies, and the former CEO of the East-West Institute that tried to have peace in the world. Dr. Parker, there's so many things happening in the world right now. What are you worried about the most?
Wow. Maybe I am worried the most about the United States' situation in the world, how we're looked at right now. And unfortunately, I don't think we're looked at from a vision of strength. And that concerns me. I look at what's going on with the Russians. I look at what's going on with the Chinese and the Chinese in South America, potentially Chinese in Cuba. These things concern me quite a bit.
They're trying to outmaneuver us in so many ways. And don't forget the Chinese government. And, when I talk about Chinese, I don't talk about Chinese people are very nice people. I try to talk about the Chinese government that has possibly 100 million people in the Communist Party that are dispatched all over the world to do the doing of the Chinese government.
John, I think you just hit it right on the nose. There's a lot, most probably, really good Chinese people. But the reality is that the Chinese Communist Party is a major threat to the United States. We've been talking about this for 15, 20 years now, you and I. And in fact, when you go back and look at the fact of the U.S. Navy, that was the largest Navy in the world, we said if we don't change this now, we're going to have issues. And we didn't change it. We didn't start building ships, and now we're the second largest Navy in the world. And their technology is significant, most of which was taken from us. So I worry about these things. I worry about what it looked like when we left Afghanistan. I worry about what it looks like when the Saudis
when we moved out of Afghanistan. The Chinese took over almost the biggest base we ever had in Afghanistan. That was only a couple hundred miles off their border.
That's exactly right, and took it over. And by the way, we left billions and billions of dollars of equipment there, and we left some high-tech equipment there as well. We will see that come back on the battlefield again, and I think we will end up fighting our own equipment in the future. So that it was a huge mistake the way we left Afghanistan, and if we're not careful, and I don't think we are being, we're going to be dealing with a much closer neighbors in South America. And this idea of Cuba, it could be one of two things. It could be an administration that says, look, we're going to solve this problem like Kennedy did, which, by the way, you're not going to get a second scenario like that because everybody else read the scenario in the Kennedy tapes as well.
I understand a couple of days ago, the Wall Street Journal ran that the Chinese are trying to move bases or something into Cuba. And my reading of it is maybe it's they're trying to do it move them in there to be able for maybe Washington to solve the problem, to make the current White House heroes. Oh, look, we solved the Cuban Missile Crisis again.
Yeah, I think, when you went back and looked at the last couple of Joint Chiefs of Staff and when they were asked what their biggest concern was, they said it was the economy. And we have a major problem there right now as well. That is, the economy is a national security issue. Having the right people in place to look downrange and say, we can't allow countries like China into South America in the way that they're rolling in right now with weapons, with spies. We can't allow balloons to fly over our country and hover over our most sensitive areas, et cetera. So there's a lot of things I'm concerned about. But from the national security perspective, I would say the economy. I would say the lack of flow of fuel. I would say our very big mistake of downsizing the strategic reserve, and now we haven't bought back and brought that strategic reserve of oil back up to the level it's supposed to be. These are all major concerns, and it's all happening simultaneously. The winners of this whole thing, the winners of all of these scenarios, when you go back and look at it, is either the Chinese or India. Russia's a big loser on this thing, and our taxpayers are a big loser on this.
I mean, it's such a joke going on. Last week, also last Sunday, Saudi Arabia tried to stir the pot to raise by cutting oil, to raise the price of oil, because oil was down to the $68 the previous Friday. But they only managed to raise it a couple of dollars because nobody believes Saudi Arabia anymore. I mean, Russia is selling oil to Pakistan. Pakistan is selling that same oil to the United States. I mean, you can't make this crap up.
You're spot on there. This is a series of mistakes at an epic level right now, and the impact on the American taxpayer. This is not 1 or 2 years paying it back. This is generations of paying this back if we correct it now. If we don't correct it now, I'm sorry, but the very security of this country is threatened, and we are heading down that road if we're not already there. Between what's going on with our military, between what's going on with the economy, the lack of energy, the fact that we're talking about going electric. What happens if you really go electric? Well, then if you have any kind of EMP strike, electromagnetic pulse strike, it means all of those electric cars, all those electric vehicles stop operating instantaneously. So now what do you have to operate? Okay, so let's say an EMP event doesn't happen. You also have to look at the fact that the grid cannot support all these electric vehicles that we want to put on the road in the near future. Is it good to save the environment, to save energy? Probably. But we have to be smart about it and phase it in versus bring them all in at one time. And we better find a way to protect these vehicles and others against the EMP kind of events that could just completely wipe out not only vehicles, but our power plants, et cetera.
Understood. Where else do you, when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, holy cow, what other areas are you afraid for our country?
I'm concerned about what's going on in Ukraine just because I think that there's a possibility that could impact all of Europe. Right now, there are backup cooling systems. We're talking now about the dam that just burst. How it burst, don't know yet. But the reality is it is significant in the impact to those human beings there. It's also significant to potentially the cooling of the nuclear power plant that's locally set there. Now, right now, they have extra places and extra water to do that. But when people aren't able to have any water to drink, they're going to get it from wherever they can, rightly so. So I'm concerned about that. Nobody's really talking about North Korea right now.
Didn't Saudi Arabia or somebody bought all the water supply or create, you create a problem, it's good for somebody's business.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of that going on right now between that and the military-industrial complex making an awful lot of money right now on Ukraine and other places around the globe. Nobody's really talking about North Korea.
Any update on Ukraine or which side do you believe more?
I would like to believe that the Ukrainian people want to be. Remember, there's a reason that we did not bring them into NATO when we did, because they hadn't met the human rights issues. They hadn't met many of the other issues. The Russians certainly felt threatened, and this is another one of these self-inflicted gunshot wounds. Are you spinning up threats by putting more weapons in right next to the border of another country, potentially? On the other side of it is Crimea happened under Obama. Trump said, "Don't even think about it," and they didn't cross the border, and they waited until Biden came in, and then they rolled into Ukraine. So I think the bigger threat there is the fact that we didn't stop it in the first place. Nobody's talking about North Korea right now, but the missile tests there are unprecedented. The level of tests, I believe that they will do another nuclear test sometime this year, underground test. They now have the ICBM capability, that's an intercontinental ballistic missile capability, to reach the United States. They have lots of queuing going on now. They have balloons. They're working with the Chinese, so they have plenty of balloons that are doing sensing over the United States. We have more and more ships we're seeing. Remember, you got 100,000 commercial ships in the world right now as well.
Thank you for an update, Bill Parker, and thank you for, you served 30 years in the Navy and protected our country, and thank you for speaking out for our country continuously, and we'll catch up with you again real soon.
Sounds great, John. Thank you very much. Great to be back on your show.